Stuart Primo Denny.
Hey, Stuart. Oh God.
The man himself with Pablo. Pablo Escobar.
Let me turn you up. Hang on. There we go. Don't have to change the view. Oh, here we go. Where is everyone?
I know they're all late.
They're late, aren't they? Shit, they are.
It's not on the journey plan, is it? It's not on the day. Now then.
Laura's doing the washing up. Go on, girl.
Go on, Laura.
Oh, I feel so rough.
She's not very well.
Been out on the pre-workout, have you?
Everyone needs to get out of bed.
Look at them, yeah, like gloves. Oh.
Marigolds. What's happening, gang? You all right, Remy?
Morning.
How are we? Now then. That's going to be my thing today.
Yeah. Don't judge. I don't feel great at all. I feel really rough.
Really?
Oh, I do. I've
You've
just
been out
done.
on pre-workout as well, have you?
No, I've just done 7 whole days in a row at work, all late shifts, because nobody else has got the arse to do it. So my boss asked me to do it, and I did it.
Champion mentality, you see.
Do you know what? I'm the only one there who will do a double shift.
Who's Guru? Guru's
Guru's on.
Guru.
Hey, going on, Riggs? You all right?
How you doing, mate? Good?
Good, mate. Good.
Ricky's always on the move, isn't he? On a Saturday morning.
Ricky's dodgy, mate.
Ricky's always fishing, or he's in
Ricky's
some
up to
dodgy building.
something.
He's always up to something.
Work.
Oh, that's Guru. It's Ricky. You should have known.
Guru's iPhone. That's what it is.
Another dodgy name. Morning, Rebecca.
Hiya, morning everyone.
You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. You?
You're like
Very good.
you're bubbly as hell. You are this
Like a
morning. I
bottle of
love
pop.
that.
What's that?
Like a
Super
bottle of pop.
bubbly this morning.
Oh, really? I've only been up about 20 minutes.
Oh, I love that.
Good effort.
Fucking hell, I wish I was like that after 20 minutes.
No,
Bad
laying
time.
with the husband on Saturday morning. Sorry, Steve.
Love
Yeah,
that.
Right, we'll give it a minute, shall we? How is everyone? What's everyone been up to? I love that the berries sit there all hanging around the screen.
Let's do this.
Kids.
I don't have a choice. I really do not have a choice.
I look really orange.
I think
I'm
Paige
trying to
faked
find
tan
out where
last
my
night,
flowers
didn't you,
came from.
Paige?
Yeah, I fake tan and I've washed it off, but I still look a little bit orange.
Fuck's sake.
Where's Mrs.
I was just
Green?
trying to find out where my flowers came from. So
Where's Tom
There's-
Green at?
Sorry, lovely. They wouldn't dare miss it. The thought of extra cardio.
Yeah. Carl Pettigrew. Primo.
Maddie, I'm still trying to find out where these flowers came from.
Hey,
I love that, yeah.
Remy's got a secret admirer, look.
At work, I have no idea who.
Kirk.
Kirk.
100%.
I literally got to work yesterday, right? So I got there about 1:15 yesterday, and they were sitting there at work waiting for me. I have no idea who they're from. The note was just even more suspicious, but I still don't know who they're from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where's the thing?
No, go in the team chat. Just forward the invite to him.
Alright.
He's a fucking idiot. Shh. Oi, oi. We'll get started if everyone's late. I'm sure we've all got gyms to go to and cardio to do.
How's everyone's week been? Most importantly.
Not too bad.
Good.
Busy.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been good.
Good. Good. Anything that needs to be discussed? Any questions before we start? Any positives or any potential, doubt it, but negatives?
I need a new job.
I thought you loved your job. You always bang on about how much you love
I
your
do.
job.
I just got home. I'm tired.
I was meant to go gym this morning, but I didn't.
Oh, fuck's sake, Paige.
but I'm going later.
That's the main thing. You're going to do a berry.
If John lets me.
Yeah. You're not going to cramp his style.
I'm not going with him.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Fuck
Oh.
no.
No, because he's going to Ripped and that scares me.
Ah,
Don't
really?
think scare. We'll be there later, so come to Ripped. We'll be doing some.
I've got to
progress.
wait for her to get back.
Where is Rip's gym?
Basildon.
Yeah, Basildon.
I'll
Right.
take a visit up there one day.
Get
Yeah.
off.
When are you going?
I'll bring you up here to pose.
Got a little bit of work to do after this, probably about 11, 12.
Yeah, about 11 times.
Is
When
anyone
you on?
betting on the horses?
Unless I get
Okay.
someone to have the kids and we go together.
No.
3, 2. Morning, sunshine.
Morning.
I on?
Pete.
You're definitely on, mate.
I've had a hell of a day.
It's
How's the hedgehog?
It's 9
Hedgehog's
o'clock.
fine,
Right, good.
but I've been stitched up by a counsellor who's also a director of his letting agent who's lied about the whole fucking thing. I've been refused a sunbed shop due to
Go to bed.
no reasons. He works for a woman called Linda who couldn't give me a name or feedback to find out that the woman he actually works for is the woman that's told all the shops that my sunbed shop's coming. So he's obviously been paid out by someone to swap it over and told his boss that I'm not interested anymore.
Fuck Linda.
Linda's a prick.
Honest, I could eat a brick, but I hope everyone else is doing all right. Apologies for leaving the group. I'm just really angry. I don't get angry, and when I get angry, I'm no good to be around. So apologies.
Well, don't get angry.
Don't get angry.
Apologies accepted.
Roll
Did
call.
you send Remy flowers?
I've got
No.
Yeah.
No, I seen the Instagram post. They're nice flowers though. So
They are, but I wouldn't know who they're from because I got to work yesterday. They were already delivered, and the note just made me more curious.
Can you not look
Why?
at
Just leave it.
No, I suppose they wouldn't have hand delivered them, would they? They would have got a company to do
Yeah,
it
it's
for them.
Interfloor or something.
yeah,
See?
leave it as curiosity. Buy yourself another bunch of flowers that somebody else is into, and they'd be like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
buy
I'll
more.
do that.
See, it killed me. It killed me.
make whoever is jealous.
Nice.
Get a bigger bunch.
I did that when John was in Iraq. I used to buy flowers for myself and post it on social media.
Oh, that's nice.
What you want to do when you fight for a country? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Getting shot at daily. Yeah.
You didn't really have time to do any online shopping, did you?
No.
I can't afford that for how I can't afford to spend like that much on them roses. But the note just made me laugh. It says, "I hope you like the flowers from question mark."
It's
So
nice,
wherever it
though.
is, whenever they admit it, I'm just going to start calling them question mark. So
Yeah.
because
It's very
First.
Right, shall we start?
Yeah, it's crack
really
on.
real.
We've got loads to get through. You'll all be pleased to know.
This is going to be exciting, this one, guys. I did this PowerPoint.
Corey's only seen it.
Not true. I invented biomechanics. I love you now. Who else has just joined?
Adam.
Okay, cool. Morning, Adam.
This might be record numbers this morning of people out of bed.
Actually is. You all smashed it.
Right.
Well, before you all start, apologies if I'm making weird faces and driving home.
You're right. We can't see your face anymore, Kirk.
Oh, touch. Is that? Have I done something, or is it just done it?
No. We haven't kicked you out either. It's just because. Oh no, we can see your face. You're in the top right now. Give us a smile.
Okay.
No, you're fine. Go on, do your thing.
You're fine, mate. All right, cool. So we'll crack on. So I think we knew this was coming. We are going to do this last week, but decided not to because we thought it was more relevant to do about routine. So it's a little bit more interactive. We've got some videos. I'm going to go through some bits on training, execution, intensity, and why it's important and why we need to concentrate on it and why it makes a difference to having a dog shit physique or a good physique, basically. So starting off, oh, that didn't work. Okay, so that's not helpful, is it? Attributes for accurate training. So these are things that we're going to run through in this. There's quite a bit to get through, so we'll just run through it, and then at the end, if there's any questions, we'll go through. Otherwise, we'll be on for like 2 hours, and everyone, I'm sure, has got things to do. So we're going to just touch on what progressive overload is and why we need to work within our rep ranges, what training to failure looks like, why tempo is important and how we want you to train, about breathing and bracing, why that's important and how we want you to do that. And then a couple of positioning things, just lightly touching on positioning for pressing movements, pulling movements, and then leg movements as well. And then a little bit on the importance of filming our sets. So we'll just jump straight in. First one is about progressive overload. Now I'll let Corey talk a little bit more about this, but I don't want to teach people how to suck eggs, but I'm aware that everyone's at slightly different levels of their training and slightly different levels of experience and how they train. And some people are quite new to this progressive overload approach, and some people have been doing this for years. So we're just going to explain kind of from the bottom up what that looks like. So for example, if you've got on your program a squat, for example, and your first set on that program is an 8 to 10. Now you might have an 8 to 10 and a 12 to 15 or something like that. But if you've got an 8 to 10 as your first set, what we need to be doing is trying to work within that rep range. And what that means is we're looking to fail within that rep range. So we're looking to get towards 8 reps and think, I've not got much left here. And we need to be failing between that 8 to 10. And when I say failing, I'm not talking about thinking that gets hard now, let's put the weight back. I'm saying I couldn't perform another rep properly, or I couldn't perform another rep unassisted.
That rep is going to be considered as your perfect rep. So when we talk about accuracy, tempo, breathing, bracing, when we talk about the quality of your reps, they have to be what's called standardized. Yeah. So 8 to 10 perfect reps. All right.
The last rep will always, if you video your set, the last rep will always probably look not quite like the others. So the last rep will be your signs of failure and signs of slowing down and signs that your form is starting to break down. And that's where you put it back. So for example, progressive overload is the idea that you get stronger each week because you move more weight each week, either because you're moving more reps of the same weight or you're doing the same amount of reps for more weight. So what that might look like is week 1, 8 to 10, you might do 8 squats at 40 kilos. You haven't maxed the rep range there. So week 2, you do the same thing. You might get 9 reps. Week 3, you might get 10. But once you're at 10, you've maxed the rep range. Do you think, right, I need to up the weight now because I'm at the top of that working load? So then you might put a 1.25 on either side of the bar and micro load the bar. And it's important that we only go up in small stages. So when you put a little bit of weight on the bar at a time, don't jump up by 5, 10 kilos because your form will just go downhill. And then you almost start again. So you might get 8 reps at 42.5. You might only get 7. That's fine. If you get 7 next week, you need to work at getting towards that 8. On the following week, you might get 9. You might not always progress every single week. And obviously, this is where we talk about potentially needing a deload, because if you start to regress on every movement in that session or not progress and you're struggling, that's signs of a deload. But essentially, that is how progressive overload works. And it is the idea that if you're moving more weight for more reps, then you must be getting stronger. So you must be growing some muscle tissue.
I think if we were going to look at a visual representation of what progressive overload is, that would be it. If I was going to give a verbal explanation of what progressive overload is, it would just be an accumulation of intensity. Okay, now intensity is going to be brought on by either an increased load, an increased amount of reps, or potentially, if you were really going to get super anal, it would be a decrease or reduction in rest periods, because that's going to increase intensity as well. But fundamentally, guys, we want to be ensuring that when we've set out, and I always talk about that standardized approach. Tom Green's on here, we talk about this day in, day out, about movement patterns and really nailing that down. But fundamentally, once we can say, okay, I know how to perform perfect reps from a tempo perspective, from an accuracy and pathway perspective, whatever movement pattern I'm doing, then I can be in a position where I can start to really determine whether I am progressing. So again, talking about the importance of filming your sets, etc. This will be it. Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions about progressive overload before we move on? Quick?
Does everyone understand that?
Yeah, just a quick one. That was really good. But just say when you said about 7 reps when failing, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say you've got to find your 8 to 10. What about if you get an exercise where you fail at 5 or 6, but then you put the weight down a bit, but then you fail at 12?
I would say if you're failing at 5 or 6, stick with that weight, because the next week you'll get 7 probably, or 8. So if you are failing just under the rep range, stick with it. and aim to work towards that rep range. It just means that you probably stick with that weight a little bit longer.
There's a very fine line there, Kurt, because you're talking about, okay, well, if I fail at, let's just say 5, which is quite a low number, to be fair. You're not getting an enormous amount of muscle hypertrophy work there. But if we were going to say, okay, you fail at 5 and you were doing 40 kilos, what would you normally be dropping it to fall short and to try and make up to that 8?
If I was dropping it like a plate, say if I was doing like, because it's usually my hamstring curls, which is getting.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I'm doing, say, 35s, or I think it's 35, 37 or 41 or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
I might get 41 and I'll be like struggling at like 5 or 6. But as soon as I drop it to 37, I'd get 11.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. So we're playing with pin loaded machines specifically. Obviously, they're predetermined weights, aren't they? It's not like you can put, but they should normally have like micro plates on them that are like
a little 2. It's got a 2 plus 2 kilo.
Yeah, they're like are they called fractional plates or something like that? I don't know the term for them specifically. I'm sure Tom Green will know, or Adam Bridgman will know. But yeah, they normally have like little ones that you can either twist off at the top and drop down, or pull across, or actually place on yourself. So they would be the incremental weight increases.
So just don't drop a plate. Just drop that. Correct.
Yeah, because that will be middle ground. So if you're failing at 5, you drop a plate and you get 12. Well, there's something in the middle there where you can jump in and say, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll put that on. Yeah?
With it, yeah, that's cool.
Okay. All right. Good question.
Very good. Right, next one. So there's a video in here. This was
who is that guy?
So training to failure. So just obviously we've just touched on this, but what that actually looks like and how you take that last rep. And I see all too often, obviously, people like, oh, I think I've had enough of this and putting it down. So actually training to failure and what that looks like. And you can sort of look at this and ask yourself if you actually train like this with this kind of intensity to failure.
I'm a little bit worried about it.
A bit nervous. You hear me shouting in the background. Probably turn Can people hear the volume on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm already getting messages through.
Hey, good. Good.
Go on, cool.
So
happy about that. Not.
Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think again, what are the characteristics we're looking at here from a pressing standpoint? So a couple of basics that I'll give all of you guys.
Talk about pressing. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, we're going to talk about
the set as a whole.
All right. So in terms of failure, how did that look? What was the difference between that last rep and that first rep? Well, I would say more than anything, it was the tempo of the concentric portion of the movement. Yeah, I would say giving myself a thumbs up. There was no difference between the first rep and the last rep, other than the fact that I wasn't able to complete that concentric portion within the same amount of time.
If you watch the first rep compared to
so we'll drive up. So concentric, 1, 2, 3, 4, drive.
So jump towards the end, you'll see that last rep is a struggle. Like there is no possibility there that if core goes in for another rep, he's going to be able to perform it without wriggling around underneath the weight, without ruining his form, and without forcing it up. You can see that last rep is probably the last one he's able to perform somewhere well.
Yeah. Can I get a thumbs up from Tom Green, please?
Can't see him, but I'm going to virtually think that he's got his thumbs up.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Or I'll unmute and tell you.
I was going to say, I do have it on, but I'm not sure if it's on me.
There you go.
No.
It's because you have to speak and then you become
There he
the
is.
man. Hey.
My guy.
He's got his real coaching.
There you go.
My brother. What do you think about that, Tom?
I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Quality.
No extra cardio for you. Well done.
So does that make sense to everyone around what that should look like?
Yeah.
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 Now, say example about tempo. So we talk about controlling our reps. Now, you'll see on the last set that Corey's controlling his reps. There's a 4-second eccentric, there's a bit of a pause in the stretch, and then there's a drive through to the contraction. Now, for some movements, this tempo is different, but to be honest, for everybody, for every single movement that you are doing, we want you to do 4 seconds in the controlled eccentric, and then 1 second in the stretch position or the hold position, and then the drive. And that can be any movement. So we've got 2 examples here. They're both legs, but you should be able to see you should be able to see what we're talking about here, and it is relevant to the last video you just watched as well. So we'll play this, but you should be able to see there's a 4-second control with the weight, around about a second, half a second pause. I don't jump out of the hole. I don't twist my body. There's no momentum here. I control it. And the idea is that we take any momentum out of the movement. So whenever that weight is moving, it's always through control through the muscle, and there's 0 momentum through the movement. Otherwise, if there's momentum, then you ain't using you ain't contracting properly, essentially.
Squeaky bum time, lads. Let's see it. Or you. Anytime today. Here we go.
Should have clicked these videos. Making a big deal out of it. Side, isn't it?
Yep.
This is a good one. So watch it back. The idea with this, guys, is to make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable a little bit. Like if you're watching this and thinking, yeah, I don't leg press that slowly, then you need to slow down. The tip that we want to give, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but is counting through your reps. So if you can count in your head 1, 2, 3, 4, whenever you're on the way down with a weight, that is pretty much the tempo you want. And sometimes it feels very slow, but you watch the video back and you'll realize it's not quite that slow. But that's the kind of control and time that we want you to have with the weight, because essentially the more time you spend controlling the weight, the more tension you're going to be putting through the muscle. So the more stimulus you're going to create. So the more growth you're going to create, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another example here. I don't want to play that again, lads. Let's move on. Another example here of a split squat. Very, very similar thing. I'll skip forward so I'm actually on my feet. Takes me a while.
Take your time, lads.
1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 2.
That's better.
1, 2, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Even that is probably a tiny little bit fast.
1, 2, 3, 6.
But I'm on prep and I'm tired, so we'll allow it. All right. But yeah, this is about accountability. So just asking yourself, are you training with that kind of tempo? Me and Corey mostly still count each other when we're doing these videos as well. So if you do have a training partner, ask them to count you. Be accountable to the count. Like we've been doing this for years now, and we still count each other through our reps.
There are techniques that we work with to ensure that obviously you can guarantee that your tempo is slow, which we'll go through in a minute through breathing and things like that. But yeah, fundamentally, I think that's a good example. To be fair with Mads of still being able to control the weight. This set is absolutely fucking unreal, to be fair. I wish it was heavier though. But again, just really breathing and bracing. This will probably be the best example that we can give.
So when you are controlling those 4-second eccentrics, what we want to concentrate on, which helps to keep those 4 seconds consistent and every single rep consistent, is your breathing. 2 reasons. It helps you to brace in the movement, so you've actually got some power out of the hole, and then it also keeps each rep completely consistent. Now we'll play the video, but essentially what we want to be looking for on here with any movement, but hack squat is a very, very good example, is when you do the 4-second eccentric, you breathe in. It takes around 3 to 4 seconds to fill your lungs if you take a really slow inhale. What we want to see is an inhale on the eccentric part of the movement. And then when you contract, you want to shh and breathe all that air out. And your lungs are like an airbag. So when you contract and your intercostal muscles contract, you actually brace into the movement and you're a lot stronger. So a hack squat is quite a good example of this, but this is for every single movement. But you'll see Corey do this here. I think quite a very good example. and no breathing between reps at the top and no panting. Literally, as soon as your lungs are empty and you get to the top, you start inhaling, come straight back down again. We don't wait at the top. We keep the reps consistent.
Ready? Come on then.
Makes a lot of noise.
1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 2. 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
I know you're all going to ask me for my autograph after this, but honestly, guys, please one at a time.
6.
You should get the idea. Like, we probably don't need to watch all 15 reps, but the point is this is consistent all the way through. Like, as it gets harder, there's no pause at the top, there's no panting at the top, the breathing stays exactly the same.
Sorry, guys.
The reps stay exactly the same. The breathing stays exactly the same. Like, this rep here is probably the same as the first one, apart from there at the top.
Give me a break.
Fucking lightweight, Corey.
I know.
But the point is
Ronnie
here,
Coleman
like,
with long hair.
yeah, go on.
No, yeah. Point of this, I think, is just it's just a good example of that consistency. The reps were exactly the same. I would say that I wouldn't need Mads to count me necessarily, because all I'd be focusing on is being positioned correctly, breathing in through the nose, in the hole. Once my lungs are full, and this is a practice game. Like, we've, as Mads said, for a number of years now, we're literally stood in the gym going 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, it's extremely repetitive, but the idea of that repetition is every single rep gets better, right? So practice makes perfect. So for you guys specifically that potentially train on your own, looking at the basics of, okay, what am I trying to achieve here? I'm trying to achieve controlled eccentrics. Well, if you start going through your rep pattern of inhaling on the way down, breathing out on the way up, your reps will have to be more controlled, because your breathing will determine the time and tempo and the time spent with that load specifically, right? So if all of you would sit there and take a big inhale in through your nose, that's how long your eccentric portion of the movement would be. Not only that, there's a massive emphasis on control, because when you're under a specific load, and it's all relative to everybody, whether I'm under 5 plates or 6 plates or 7 plates or 3 plates, I am under a load and I'm having to brace against that load. I'm having to support myself. Much like I gave this example to a couple of you this week. If I was to tell you all, Tom had a social media the other week, and we talked about his bracing in a session, and he was like, yeah, I went in and I actually performed the movements probably better than I ever have done, because he was aware that his knee was a little bit gammy, and he wanted to ensure that he was as tight as possible, as locked in as possible. And you all would have had those sets where you're looking at a set or a weight and being like, fucking hell, I'm really gonna have to try hard here. Like, I'm pushing this a bit. And you're probably the strongest you've ever been. Why? Because you're bracing, you're ready for that load. And if I was to tell you that I was going to push you over, what would you do? You support yourself. Okay, lock in. He's going to push me over. If I didn't tell you I was going to push you over, I'll probably be able to push you over quite successfully, because you'd be off balance. You wouldn't be braced. You wouldn't be supporting yourself. So it's exactly the same. And your breathing is going to determine your ability, your control more than anything, I think. So that's something I think you all need to take away, is we need to be in a position where we're saying, okay, cool, I'm going into this movement pattern. I'm going to stay controlled. What do I need to focus on? Don't worry about the reps you're doing specifically, because that's all logged down. You don't have to worry about that. What you need to worry about is, okay, I'm in this movement now. I just need to focus on my breathing, ensure that I'm inhaling on the way down, inhaling through the eccentric, breathing out through the concentric portion of the movement, and away we go. And
But like you're saying, sorry, Corey, jump in. If I do the breathing part, I forget the rep range. So I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. I could do 6 reps and think I've done 25 reps. I'd be like, oh.
I'm
I get
exactly the same.
no, I get that. And it's always a difficult one, because obviously if you're breathing in and you're trying to think about your numbers and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're trying to breathe in, but you're counting through your mouth, not in your head, and like it can all become a bit of a clusterfuck. So as a baseline, what I'm saying is something to take away would actually probably be video your sets is a perfect way, because you can look back and you can be like, well, that was a bit fucking quick. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do next time I do that, I'm going to try and be slower. And you know the difference. Like you'll come out of a set and you'll be like, wow, like I was out of that in 30 seconds. So I can determine whether a set is going to be productive by how long the video is for, even watch it. If I look at a set of 8 to 10 and it's the best part of a minute long, that's about right. 4 seconds per rep, 4 to 5 seconds per rep over 8 reps, like you've got yourself best part of a minute, right? So for you, I would just concentrate on your breathing.
Your breathing will determine the seconds. If you slowly fill your lungs up, like it will. One thing you can do when you're counting as well is count the numbers on the 4th second. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1.
Yeah, that's a good way.
4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. So that's one way that we will count. Otherwise, you end up counting 4 and then you rep at the same time. But also, I would say, like, if you know you need to hit 7 reps on something, concentrate on your breathing, record your set, and don't worry too much about the reps that you're doing, because you can look back on the video and count how many you've done.
Yeah.
If you're aiming for progress and you're training to absolute failure, in theory, you should be getting more than the reps you got last time. So make a mental note of how many reps you got. But if you're training to absolute failure and really pushing yourself to that limit, I think there's a bit of a psychological thing, and me and Corey have discussed this before, of me saying, well, do you usually stop at 8 reps if you got 7 last week, because you know 8 reps is progression, so you leave it there? If you didn't know how many reps you got last week, would you potentially do more and push harder because you'd be pushing to absolute failure because you didn't know how many you got? So I think the point is, if you're always training to absolute failure, then it doesn't really matter, because you're actually pushing yourself to your limits every session. Yeah. And I think that's the important thing.
You could probably define that as real progression as well. Like I'm sure most of us would agree, if we were looking for that 1 rep, 1 set, 1 session at a time type situation, which I believe in, because it does guarantee progression. But if you're overly emotionally invested by your logbook and that extra rep every single time, is that extra rep always going to be there? Potentially not. Will you find it? Yes. Is it going to be as quality as the 7 or 8 before that? Probably not. So there is a big argument for that. But I think, yeah, as a baseline, Kirk, I would say 1, 2, 3, 1 is a good start.
That's a really good way for me, because you don't think that way, do you? If you go 1 or 4, 3, 2, 1, you go back up 4, 3, 2, 1. But if you're adding the extra rep every time, add
it on every time, So
and you can't miss. And then again, like this is, and again, guys, this is a practice thing. This ain't going to come overnight.
This probably took us, like the tempo thing, I would say best part of 6 to 8 months to really master.
Yeah, and get good at, like, to be in a position where I could sit under anything and be like, yeah, I've got this.
Yeah, because I do it like you do say, like you get out of weights or an exercise and you're thinking, fucking hell, that was quick.
Yeah.
Right, have I even done a set?
Yeah.
Right, I've just jumped in and jumped out and you think, am I going to progress? So yeah, that's a good way of thinking. You
will progress over anything else. Like stimulus will cause adaptation response. It's just how much you can squeeze out of yourself and out of a session. I think that was the big turning point for us. We've been bodybuilding for a long time. Like I've had enormous lifts in the past. I probably don't lift anywhere close to that now because I topple over. Yeah. But there's also the case of quality as well. Do you know what I mean? And I'd probably say doing this, guys, and this is like honestly the most important thing. I have grown more in the past 2 years by embedding myself and immersing myself in the quality of what I do, as opposed to the weight that I lift.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, someone told me before, it's not about moving from point A to B, it's from actually using your muscle to feed it. And then...
you're trying to lift the weight, not shift the weight.
Yeah, because everyone, 90% of people in the gym, they just push the weight. It's like you're not even using that muscle.
That used to be like my calling card. I swear down. Like I could pick up 7 plates like 3-4 times a week from the floor, like light work. I could walk into a leg session, train a whole leg session, see somebody squatting and put 6 plates on the bar and squat it. Like, but my legs are bigger now, and I had to squat 5 plates. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the quality of it is so much better.
Less risk of injury, less systemic fatigue.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? And I'll tell you what, Cal isn't on here, otherwise I'd give him proper ear bashing, it'd be brilliant. But Cal is the worst for this because he
Tom's like, yeah.
he is, because he
fucking
can,
rips, mate.
do you know what I mean? He can move almost anything. Like he puts on a bar, he can do PB 40 kilos on a deadlift week after week after week until he messages me and he's like, cool, like I can't get out of bed. And like that's the reality. You know what I mean? He trained with me and Mads for I think 3 months, 3-4 months after the British, and he literally didn't pull from the floor once. Right? He did. We reformulated his ability to execute movements properly, elbow to the hip type situation, Tom, and hey presto, he's got a back. Like wow, do you know what I mean? Like he came in. I remember we did a machine lap pull down. He put 3 plates on it. He swung it around. Mads took 2 off, and he went on 1 plate. He literally stayed on that for the first 2 months. His back was bigger by the end of the 2 months than when he started. Do you know what I mean? So,
and that was just by resetting his posture and his form.
Correct.
We'll touch on that, but I think, and this is a big thing for Tom, like Tom Green, like as I think you've gone through a similar thing over the last year or two, haven't you, mate? And like now your training is exactly the same, absolutely immaculate, and concentrate on that, and it makes the difference. And
I'd say he's stronger, actually. To be fair, within.
But as in, I haven't hit like max lifts as far as I've hit heavier loads before, but not with this level of control, not with the centrics this slow, not as much control in the whole, things like that. Changes direction. And it like definitely has accumulated more muscle mass than just shifting a fuckload of weight. And then as well as that, I think it's because of an emotional attachment. Like since going back to hack squatting instead of free weight squatting, although I can free weight squat probably not more, but like it's my free weight squat is more impressive, but then it's more of an emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Like my hack squat's like more beneficial for my legs all day long, and it's better on my knees as well.
Yeah.
So it's about the right movements as well, and I think it's just about you have to, and bodybuilders are terrible for this, like, and I think this is why it takes a while to learn, because it is a little bit of an ego thing. You actually realize, and I think, and Corey probably won't mind me saying, like when we first started really concentrating on this, you realize you're not as strong as you fucking think you are. Like when you actually move something properly, you think, oh fucking hell, actually, like I can't move 4 plates for that, because actually I can't, because I'm not that strong in, and it's about the full rep range as well. Like you're not that strong in the bottom because you've never reached the bottom, because you always bounce once you're halfway there. So it's about being able to fully move away all the way through. And what I will say to you is, once you start doing the full rep range with control, your strength will suddenly like overtake where you were before very quickly, because you actually train your muscle through the full range.
I remember I was dumbbell pressing at the time, incline dumbbell pressing. I went from dumbbell pressing 70 kilo dumbbells to 40 within a session. Yeah. And I was heartbroken. Do you know what? I stopped filling out my logbook. I was just like, fuck bodybuilding, I'm done. Like I don't know how this even works. And like you all know, because we've all probably every single person on here, most of you, we've gone through like elbow path on a press. Like pull that elbow path down. Watch what happens when you start to stimulate your pec and not your anterior delt. Interesting.
And like you're saying, Corey, I got sat down by a bodybuilder. You might know him, Andy Pinnock, big black guy, very lovely guy.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew everything back then. Obviously didn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to get you through a leg extension. I was like, easy, 90 kilo, like nearly at the bottom. And he's like 20, I think it was a 15 or a 20.
Yeah.
And he goes, we're not going to move it from A to B. We're going to, and like you do with the seatbelt kind of thing, strap me in. And he goes, and now move it, but control. Yeah. I got to like 8-9 reps and my legs were vibrating like they'd never been worked before. And I was like, wow. So I've clearly been doing everything fucking wrong. So yeah, it is. When you do feel it properly, it does work.
I think there is an understanding. Like, it's nothing. Like, I love the fact that you called it wrong. It's not wrong. It's just the idea that we're taking this from what would be considered as like a textbook chest press. Do you know what I mean? If you've ever like do your personal training course level 2 and you're like, okay, great. Well, there's no accuracy from a biomechanical standpoint there, which means that actually what you're trying to target isn't what you're really targeting, because again, it's an A to B situation. So we're talking about going from the average gym goer or the duck it and see, yeah, I'm in here and something's moving, so I must be doing something to, do you know what? Let's make this fucking elite. Do you know what I mean?
When it starts being that accurate as well is when you can start dropping volume, because the
Yeah.
amount of fucking junk volume you have to put in when you're doing bullshit reps is actually unreal.
It's
Because
like-
the amount,
it's
like
like-
if you do like one really accurate set to complete failure, you're usually gonna be so fucked afterwards. The thought of a second set is like daunting enough. So doing 4 or 5 sets, like a lot of time when I see these guys, they're on like the machine and they do like, or an exercise and they're doing like 5, 6, 7 sets. It's just like, why wouldn't you just do one set of some
One
productive
very,
work
very
and
hard
fuck
set.
off?
Yeah.
You'll probably grow more.
Yeah.
And what's
it's-
this stuff everyone does now where they pyramid up? That's not a working set, is it? They keep going up in the weight. Surely if you did your working set from the top first one, you're going to
No,
go out
no,
after
they
two.
can, yeah, they can. No, these guys like the age old like 4 sets of 8 to 10 or something like that, or like an 10 to 12, 8 to 10, 6 to 8. Like this pyramid style training is something that I got introduced to when I first started bodybuilding. When I was like 10.
Yeah, so
What a
Does it
load
even
of
work?
shit that is.
Does it
Like,
work?
no.
The
it's
thing
good
is-
to give a warming up.
It's
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
not
but your whole
accurate-
set's been warmed up. Your whole day session.
Yeah. Like, isn't that's the problem though? It's like, is that risk to reward factor? Like, is in how much fatigue are you going to accumulate warming up doing that as opposed to just doing sets of 2s
Do you
and
know what?
3s?
It's a little bit like if you try and clean the kitchen with like a dirty fucking mop and you slop it around a little bit, you have to go over the floor like 10 times and you might get it clean.
Yeah.
If you just go around it once properly with a good cloth, then you do the job once. And it's exactly
Yeah.
the same thing. Like if you train 1 to 2 sets accurately hard to failure, that's all you need to do. You can spend less time in the gym. It's less tiring. You actually accumulate more intensity in your training. You get more out of less. And if you drive less fatigue, you'll have a better looking physique because you'll be less watering, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So the whole thing is just one big accumulation. But I guess the thing to take away before we move on to the next bit is do your breathing, control your sets and make the most out of it. It's not productive to do extra sets and more reps just to get volume and throw blood into the muscle because it doesn't really work. And this is why progressive overload is key, and doing things properly and making sure that if every rep is the same, if you take an extra rep the next week, you must be stronger because you did it the same as last time. That's the point.
Guys, I've got a very quick question.
Go on. Sorry, I need to pause this. Yeah, go on.
It's just because I say that video that you're showing there of the Cybex hack. So out of all the lifts I do, if anyone's the same, I find the Cybex hack the most taxing in terms of breathing.
Yes.
If I do bar squatting or whatever, I don't find it as taxing. Whereas if I'm doing the Cybex, I get to rep 6, 7, 8, whatever it is. It's like you still got more. So like that set there, you don't stop at the top. But then I'll get to, I don't know, I'll do 12, 15. I'll get to rep 10 and I'll take 5 seconds at the top before I go again. If you know, because we still have a lot more in them.
What I would say with that is that the way that we calculate that, so we would write in our logbook, like you get 10 perfect reps and you're able to go in, and then you can't do the 11th one like that, then you've got 10. And if you do one more after you've taken 5, 6 seconds at the top, it's 10 plus 1 in your logbook. Because what we really want to concentrate on is those continuous reps. So we want to build on the continuous reps, because essentially if you're having to take time at the top to go back in, that means obviously you're not quite in a position, whether it's from a cardiovascular, a fitness, a strength standpoint, to be able to go back in. So we concentrate on those continuous reps. And then if you do manage to pause and get another one, put +1 and then put it back. And then next week you want to concentrate on building that continuous rep. But it is taxing. It's very difficult.
There's, if you had said, oh, do you know what, I use an Atlantis hack squat. I know this is getting to this whole terminology thing here, but if I was using an Atlantis hack squat and do you know what, I just get taxed at the top, I'd just be like, yeah, well, you're fine. But the fact that it's a Cybex, it is the hardest hack squat known to man. Like, it's the hardest movement, probably more than anything else. Yes. Anyone on here that's used one before will 100% agree. It's absolutely horrendous. But yeah, but it works. I was going to say, imagine being used it before. We went to counselling after. We're all good now. But yeah, I think what Mad said, I would always put reps +1 if that was the case. If you get gassed out, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you've got more in the tank, but it is a case of, I don't know how often are you using it? Is it every session now?
No, it's so I've got lower 1, 3,
Yeah.
lower two I do hack,
Yeah.
and then instead of back squats and lower 3 I do reverse V squat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's only on lower 2, but it's more like, so I've got 2 working sets. Let's say, I don't know, the first one's 8 to 10. Normally with that, I'm all right. I can sort of play. But let's say it's like the higher reps, 12 to 15.
Yeah.
Let's say I do, because I reverse band it as well, because I just find it more comfortable in the hole. Because otherwise, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say a higher rep one, if I do, let's say, I don't know, 4.5, 5 plates, and I'm aiming for 12, 15.
Yeah.
My legs can do it, but I'll get to about 10. And I'm at the top. I'm like, fucking hell, really? Do you know what I mean?
I would revisit your breathing
100%.
because you might be surprised. Film your set, send it to Corey. Film your set, send it to Corey, and concentrate on your breathing when you do that. And you might be surprised that actually you're not breathing that consistently through your first 10 reps, because if you're getting gassed, you probably breathing could be better through your earlier sets, I would say.
I would probably say it would be a case of potentially bracing too hard, holding your breath in the hole.
Holding your breath,
Like it's very, very different. If you were performing a barbell back squat, although I wouldn't agree with it, like the old approach or the powerlifter's approach or the strongman approach would be brace first. So inhale, hold that air, come down, and then drive out through the hole. Tom will agree with this, but for the way and purpose that we're trying to remember, we're trying to make things hard, not heavy. Yeah. So for you specifically, I would suggest focusing on just your breathing coming in on the way down, and you won't get as gassed. That's not a muscularity thing. That's you're just puffed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're horrendous. Like it's a horrendous movement. But yeah,
film it this week. Film it this week, mate. Send it to Cor. Have a look.
I think I'm gonna go. Well, I'll go gym after. I made today, so I'll film it.
Perfect timing.
Right, let's run through this. There's got about 15 minutes left. So this is about so we're just going to go through a couple of cues for a few movements in terms of how you set your elbow path and things for pressing, pulling, and some leg movements, just so you understand what you're trying to be feeling for and looking for when you set up a movement. So you don't just go in and move away, you actually know what you're doing in terms of movement path. So this is an example of a press. Now, not all presses are the same, obviously, but for general pressing movements and rules, this is what we're going to show you. So we'll run through this video of Corey, and then I'll do a little breakdown of what we're looking at. I'll do it whilst you're on, so I'll turn the volume off. So you'll see Corey's set up here. If you look at Corey's positioning, his feet are planted on the floor, and he's got a box there because if he hasn't, he's not going to get his full feet on the floor, so he's not fully braced off the floor, so he'll just be hanging, so he's not in a great position.
Yeah,
and
that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're all right, mate. And then with his pressing here, like the reps are consistent, as we've already said, nice and slow. You can see him breathing in there through his nose, exhaling out through his mouth. But the point of this movement is his elbow path, even though it's an incline movement, his elbows are actually in line. If you put a bar all the way through his chest, through where his nipples are, his elbows literally would go through that line. Now, what we see a lot of the time when people do this pressing is the elbows are really high up by their shoulders. And when you do that, you don't stimulate the pec. You put a lot of pressure on the delt, and your risk of injury. And you always hear people saying, oh, I tore my rotator cuff. Oh, my rotator cuff. I hear that all the time in the gym from guys who are top heavy who just throw dumbbells around. And it's because they perform their pressing absolutely terribly. So for pressing movements, failure rep, well done, Cor. So pressing movements, your elbow path needs to be in line with your like center of your chest. So here, like if we were to pause, I don't know if I can pause it halfway through. If we were to look here with Corey, his elbows are in line pretty much with the center of his chest, where his nipples are all the way through. His elbows are not up by his shoulders at a 90-degree angle. His angle between his bicep and his rib cage is about 45 degrees. So potentially slightly a bit bigger, but as long as it's within that kind of middle range, you're about right. And that's for all pressing movement, whether you're doing it flat with a barbell, whether you're doing it flat with the dumbbells, whether you're doing a shoulder press as well to an extent. If you're doing a shoulder press, even with dumbbells, what you actually want to do is think about your hands, your elbows coming a little bit in front of you and not sitting right behind you, and right in line with your shoulders, because all you're going to do is put a lot of pressure onto your delt. And I don't know if you've ever sort of grabbed where your clavicle is, but there isn't really any muscle there. So in terms of strength,
not for SLE anyway,
in terms of strength and in terms of actually power and where you're actually going to stimulate and build muscle, it's actually the upper pec that we're targeting here with a little bit of front delt. So the way we're going to do that is by pulling your elbow path forward slightly and actually allowing it to stimulate the pec. And you'll suddenly find, if you video yourself doing this in a t-shirt, or you can you actually concentrate on what you're feeling, you'll feel the stimulation more and you'll be a hell of a lot stronger. You'll be a lot stronger and you'll be able to sort of position and balance yourself a lot better. And the stimulation and growth you'll get is far better. I think that in terms of like growth from a top line perspective, I think over the last year or 2 years since we've really concentrated on this, like your progression's been amazing. So has anyone got any questions on that?
Can I jump in? So that machine, just say, compared to a dumbbell,
yeah,
I'd be more inclined to pause and hold rather than like you're doing full perfect sets. I can't do that. I have to stop and then push back out. I can't continuously move on that, but a dumbbell I can. Is that make a difference, or do I have to like lower the weight?
No, I think some time spent in the hole is fine. Are you talking about dead stopping, like actually bottoming?
Yeah, kind of like a dead. So with that one, I'd have to stop. I couldn't then just push it straight back up. I have to like.
Okay,
I wouldn't.
This is a funny one, and I think it's person dependent. I don't agree with dead stops unless they're in a range where they're beneficial. Fundamentally, like I don't want you, like I'll always say that 100%
time under tension. Yeah.
100%. No. Yeah, yes for tension, but I think from a range perspective, I think to bottom out, you're potentially in a position where you haven't actually maxed the range. And if we're talking about 100% of the range and you gaining strength within 80% of it, and that bottom 20% you bottom out on before you get there, you're in a position where if you were ever in a compromising position, you were to step into that 85, 90% of the range, if your strength has risen by 20 or 30%, you're in a very, very vulnerable position. And it is as simple as that. So for me, like you'll see, and I don't want to get too technical, but talking about like internal rotation and things like that, like you need to be in a position, Kirk, where you are really maxing out that range. So if you're in a position where you almost can bottom out and you can use that as a feeler, I wouldn't say drop it all the way to the bottom and come off that. The reason as to why is because if you come off the tension, obviously you've got to re-engage, you've got to reset. Whereas if your muscle is switched on at all times, you're in a position where that tension is consistent. Yeah,
because obviously where I've had the shoulder surgery, some exercises it's okay to keep going through it, but some I'm like, it's like I have to readjust that shoulder. But again, I train on my own, so I can't see it. Yeah, I could be fine.
Film some bits as well, mate. Just pop your phone up and...
I completely agree. Like what I did when you're in a vulnerable position. So, for example, like during prep, when I wasn't as strong last year and I was probably more susceptible to injury, every bit of pressing I did was dead stop. Yeah. But I ensured purely because I had a gauge there and I knew that I wasn't going to take myself to an uncomfortable position or a compromising position. However,
you're in the fully stretch range.
We need to make sure that the range is still made up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just think about where your position is. Think about where you are actually bottoming out. I imagine, like knowing the size of you and most machine based, whether they be plate loaded or pin loaded, I can really determine where the range would be. So just think about where you're sitting. Make sure you're not too far away from that range, and you're not cutting yourself too short, and you'll be fine, mate.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
I would say, just want to add to that quickly, is that if he's keeping time under tension the entire way through, so if he stops short of putting the pressure onto the joints as opposed to shifting it from the muscle, then it wouldn't necessarily be bad, because with that slight pause, he then has to fight inertia, so his internal forces then increase. So it's not necessarily.
I don't do your way, Tom. I'd lock it. So instead of leaving it just slightly under tension, I'd bring it out. Right. I'd bring it out. So yeah, if I did that, then
I wasn't quite sure if you were talking like you completely move it so then it comes into, because a lot of people when they start to accumulate fatigue will start to then shift it onto the joints. I've done this a lot. That is in actually, to be fair, of most recent, like you will see it in my RDLs where I'll hyperextend at the hips because it gives my lower back, like, not my lower back, but it gives my glutes, my hamstrings like a momentary rest from shifting the force into the hip.
That's what I'd basically do. Yeah.
This is it. You end up removing the contraction essentially, because you're almost giving yourself a rest. And it's kind of what happens on top of a hack squat when you take 10 breaths. You just take tension off everything. And the idea is time under tension. So we want to keep the tension on. So even in the stretch portion of the movement, say on a press, if you're in the stretch portion but you haven't bottomed out, you're still holding on to that you're still contracting, you're still holding on to that movement. So get the stretch, pause in the stretch, but don't rest in the stretch. Like, you need to keep the contraction there, so you're still holding on to the weight. Otherwise, like Tom said, you tend to then put weight through the joint because you're not actually controlling anything.
Yeah.
I think you'll all probably start to be sitting there and thinking, wow, I actually have to concentrate while I'm doing these sets.
Yeah.
Because there is, like, this may seem like a lot, and I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, don't overwhelm.
But the reality is, like, you have got things that you need to be thinking about in these sessions and in these sets and in these reps, and you've got to be focused. And this is where you come away from the whole, like, I wonder what she's doing over there. Oh, hi, there's Janet. Hi, Janet, you're right. And do you know what I mean? Like, you're not in a position, you are literally like, that's why I close my eyes most of the time when I do my sets.
Yeah.
Because I can just think about what I'm doing. I'm sleeping through my entire session. It's fantastic. But you guys need to start thinking about, oh shit, well, if I'm doing this, when I'm in these sets, I really need to be in them. And even by having that mindset and approach, your training will fucking just take off. 110%. Cool.
Right, just quick difference between upper back and lat rows. So don't want to go into loads of detail with this, but we'll just quickly cover this. You'll see with some movements and on some people's plans, we might put brackets, upper back, brackets, lat bias, and just to understand the difference in rows. So if it's an upper back row, we are targeting essentially, yes, the upper back. And little cues for this are slightly lifting through the chest and making sure that we're thinking about pulling the elbows back, and they follow like a 45-degree path movement, a bit like our pressing movement. So they're not quite up by our shoulders, they're not down by our waist, we're somewhere in the middle, and we're thinking about pulling our elbows back to try and meet each other in the middle. If I was to put a pencil in the middle of my back, I'm looking to squeeze it together essentially. So here's an example of something that is upper back.
There's also a question there about your shoulder blade or scap movement as well, allowing those to travel as opposed to a lateral movement where you would keep that compressed unless you're.
So you can see here, I fully extend down through here. I allow my rear delt and upper back to fully extend at the bottom of the movement. I keep my chest up slightly, hold for a second at the top. It's probably a tiny bit fast, this.
Fucking hell, Max.
Relax. But if you can see how my upper back is moving, I'm actually looking to squeeze together through the back, and you can see my muscles contracting here, and you can see this is all upper back focused. And the difference compared to a lat focused row here, exactly the same session.
You put this one in, didn't you? The condition on the girl.
Was this yesterday?
Yeah. So when you're doing a lat focus row, we're thinking about keeping the arm close to our body, and we're thinking about pulling the elbow to the pocket of the hip. Now, when we do this, instead of like an upper back row where we keep the chest slightly lifted, we almost want to crunch down a little bit on the side, not overly, but you'll see I'm slightly leaning into the side that I'm contracting. And that's to allow me to really be able to shorten this lat, pulling the elbow down to the hip as much as I can. You'll see that when I come to the top, I don't overextend through the scap. I keep my lat contracted, so I don't overreach and allow this to totally stretch. And I'm just concentrating on the contraction down here. Also, what I'm doing as I come down is I'm turning my hand slightly underhand, because as you turn like that, I mean, you can do it now wherever you sat. As you turn your hand, your elbow naturally comes in slightly. So if you underhand turn your hand, what you'll naturally do is turn your elbow in slightly. So you'll be able to get the lat contraction slightly better, because you'll even be able to get it a little bit shorter, because your elbow will be able to come slightly closer to your body. So without totally overcomplicating that, like, just think about the movement that you're doing. And if you're doing a like a single arm pull movement, a low row, a lat focus row, we're really trying to think about keeping the elbow tight and dragging it to the pocket of our hip and crunching down into that movement. And if we're doing an upper back row, we're thinking about lifting through the chest slightly and really trying to squeeze that upper back together. So, because you've got two elements of the back. So we've got the upper back here, and then we've got the lat that comes down the side. So it's important that we target both. So it's just something to think about a little bit when you're doing these movements, like Corey said, about concentrating on what you're actually trying to do. It makes a huge difference to your training when you're able to sort of concentrate on both.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about lat specific, what we're trying to do, guys, is we're trying to keep your elbow as close to the body as possible. The closer your elbow comes, or the closer and lower your elbow can come to the body, the shorter your lat is going to get. The shorter your lat gets, the more stress it's going to be under. The more stress it's going to be under, the more response, adaptation, and growth we will see in it. Okay.
And just a quick one. Obviously, your lat. I know Tom's in here as well.
Yeah.
You've got the little lower part of your lat as well, didn't you? Is that this? Can you still get this? I've been told
All the same, mate. Yes. One.
Does it still grow in the same way? You have to do a certain.
No,
so it still does the same thing.
One muscle. Yeah.
Because everyone tells me you've got to do a different exercise to hit the lower part of your lat than rather than a lat pull down.
Yeah, I mean, you can be. I know. Tom wants to jump in on this. You can be super anal, and you can say, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to position myself slightly different. But to be fair, like if you're talking about the lat as a whole, by growing and developing your lat will give you the size and presence, I suppose, and the emphasis of having lower. I know what you're talking about. You're saying, right, I need more lower lat, so I'm going to do. I don't know, the age-old thing was like a T-bar row, slightly underhand protect. I'm going to do underhand stuff, but that's all determined by your elbow path as a whole anyway. So again, like if you turn your elbows in, I say this for bracing for pulls from the floor. If you turn your elbows in, your lower lat's engaged straight away. So that's what you want to try. Just if you literally turn your elbows in from the side at the bottom.
That's what I'm saying there.
Yeah. Your lower lats will turn on as a whole. So for lats, guys, turn your elbows in as much as you possibly can. That's going to be determined by potentially supinating your grip. So turn your hand up, and then keep your elbows as close and as low to the hip as possible. Elbow to the hip, elbow nice and close. You won't miss.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. I just wanted to kind of touch on that so you can think about what you're trying to do. And if you're not sure on the movement, just drop us a message and say, I've got this movement. Should I be concentrating on upper back for this or lat? And just drop us a message, either of us, and we'll help you out with that. Next one, I'll go on, Tom.
All I was to say, there's like a lot of dispute, obviously, about whether or not that's even doable per se. Like, there's not really a whole lot of science that will back up the idea of actually specifically targeting one head of a muscle.
Agree.
But the other thing that I would say is that, irregardless of that argument, it's like, at what point do you need to be that specific? Like, are you on the Olympia stage? No. So does it really matter that much?
100%.
No.
Yeah, it's just, when you're in a gym and someone goes, you're not hitting your lower lat properly, you're like thinking.
Say to him, when was the last time you stood on the Olympia stage, and have you got a coach? Fuck off.
Yeah, usually the people that are like giving out these bro signs look like a bag of dicks.
Yeah. Banging D-ball. Yeah, just D-ball Dave.
I've had it before where someone's been like, oh, well, you're not doing full range of motion on a shoulder press. And it's just like honestly, I didn't even know what to say, because it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
what we just said,
because I didn't hyperextend at the shoulder and I didn't lock out my elbow completely. I put all the tension on my joint. It was like, it's not full range of motion. It's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, these people just say things as if they're an authority on something, but they actually have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
No.
It's honestly baffling to me.
Yeah.
Rory just come out with what's a bag of dicks.
Sorry.
You can tell.
My bad. Sorry about
that. Tom
I'll give you a little bit more PC next time.
Tom Green, the pacifier.
It's like not very tolerant, you know.
To be fair, I don't think I've sworn a lot today, which is good.
All right, so now we're just going to show difference in ham, glute, or quad movement. So the difference here essentially is the more your knee travels over your foot when you do a leg movement, whether it's a squat or a press or something, then the more quad you are going to engage. Now, the further your knee stays in line with your ankle, this is really simple terms, like we're not going to the Olympia area, we're just talking how to engage the right muscle. You will engage more hamstring and glute. So for example, this what I showed earlier, which was my split squat. If you watch here, my knee stays pretty much over my ankle. There is not much knee traveling over the foot at all. And because of that, what is getting fully lengthened here is my hamstring and glute. And then I'm driving through my heel. So I'm really working the hamstring and glute. So the point here is if we've got hamstring and glute exercise, and it does show on your plan on the left-hand side, it'll say quad or hamstring and glute. That's your cue to think about where your foot placement is. So if it's hamstring glute, you're right, babe, then you want your knee to be pretty much staying over your heel. You'll see some people do this on a hack squat or like a Smith machine squat, like a sumo squat, something. They'll try to keep their feet out in front and sit deep behind and keep their knee over their ankle. When you do something like Corey's hack squat video, which we've already shown you, you will see that his knees travel forward. So his feet are a lot lower down and a lot closer to his body, which allows his knees to travel over his toes. So when that happens, you lengthen the quad more. So the quad is fully extended, and it essentially means that muscle is like an elastic band. The more it is stretched, because the further your knee travels, the more it needs to contract essentially then to be able to pull you out of the hole. So it's just a little thing about foot positioning. If we're looking for a quad dominating movement, we want the feet lower and we want to think about the knees traveling over the toes. And if we've got I can't go backwards now. If we want a hamstring or glute dominating movement, we want to think about the knee staying over the ankle and not traveling too much over the toes. So we actually have the hamstring, which acts as an elastic band and is more extended. Does that make sense?
Yeah, see your split squat. I've always wanted to ask this question because I've never been able to ask anyone because it's never come up. Doing it two-handed with two dumbbells, I think it's disgusting and it's horrible and I'll wobble like a motherfucker. You're doing it with one hand and you're using the opposite hand to your leg. Is that better to do it that way than to have one in each arm?
Yes, I find balance is better like that because you're off balance with your legs. So you balance yourself out like that. And there's a gap for the dumbbell to drop down into. So I find that is better. Yes, I prefer that and ask people.
I've never been able to ask anyone. You've got two dumbbells and like you either wobble one way and then you're like, oh, you've got to try push it the other way and you're taking it off your leg.
You're able to set up on that as well, go into the hole and then strap up with one dumbbell and then stand up. It's a little bit easier.
And use your opposite arm from your opposite leg,
Yes.
There's a positioning question there. Also a bit of a preference that we won't go into counter arguments. So I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's like
just do it like that.
Let's not overcomplicate it. That's fine. And then last thing is just filming our sets. So there isn't any pretty videos on here, but the reason why we need to film our sets is for everything that we've just spoken about. We can analyze our tempo, we can see how fast we've been going. We can review our form, see if our foot positioning's right, if our elbow path's right, if we're targeting the right bit at the back, if we're actually performing the exercise correctly. It's a visual logbook. You can look back and see how you performed an exercise with what weight you did it. And you can see how you then progress a year later. You might have a video doing the same movement a year later with more weight on it. Your body might look different. Your shoulders might look different. Your legs might look different. It's a nice visual sign of progress. And then you can see your muscular changes. So I look very different now doing a movement than I did 3 months ago because I'm 10 kilos lighter and I'm able to see things better. So it's nice to be able to look back and be able to see where you've changed and how you've changed. So it's a nice visual representation as well. And that's why, and obviously we want them sending to us so we can review all these things. So that is why we do it. And I hope that you can see the benefit in all that. And I know that's a lot of information for everybody. And I know we've covered a lot and I didn't want to overwhelm everyone and overdo it, but also wanted to make sure that we kind of covered all bases because I think there's a lot of information there and it's probably something we'll cover again in the future, maybe in a little bit more detail specifically. We might cover pressing or we might cover back movements, but I think it's super important that we just appreciate the different things that we need to think about with our training because it is really important. Like just going in and moving a weight isn't really how we grow and how we change. Really concentrating on what we're doing is important. So.
Yeah, I think that taking videos is actually a really, really important thing to do because that was something I wasn't doing before I worked with you guys. And although I understood a lot of the biomechanics of how movement should look, I wasn't actually doing it that way. And to be honest, if I were to, once I started actually watching my own videos, I even do it now when I send my videos to Corey, like I'll start slating my own videos as soon as I sent them to him. So like, when I first started, like I thought I was doing it properly. And then I'd like, if I rewatched it now, I'd probably slate myself for it. Like I'd rip myself to bits because it was actually like nowhere near as accurate as it could be.
See, where you say it's all good and doing the videos, well, your coaches, you love fitness. Tom's into his mechanics and all the other bits and pieces. Yous have that drive anyway. But for me to go in and stick up a tripod and do it or video it, it's daunting. I'm like, everyone's watching me. But yous know the difference because yous train people and coach people, and he does the same thing in a different aspect of fitness. It's harder for people that don't do that. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to sit in a gym and be like, oh, I'm going to video my set.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, everyone's looking at me.
Luke said this last week, and Luke since filmed some stuff and like made improvements in here. He is going to jump on now in his dressing gown, bless him. But it's made, I think it made a difference. And do you feel better, Luke, now that you just did it? It's like, oh, that was fine, no issue.
You mentioned it earlier. So when I filmed my set, I wasn't actually counting the reps because I was just focusing on the set. But then when I look back at the video, I just counted the reps and then wrote it on the logbook, which helped me a lot. And I'm, what the hell? Oh, sorry.
Like, as in, I used to absolutely hate the idea of filming myself. Like, to be honest, like I was like quite resistant to it when we first started. Well, not so much when we first started because it's in lockdown. I was just training in my own gym, but like back in the public gym, no, I hate it. I think it's quite daunting, to be honest.
Like, I'm confident I can talk to anyone, but go put me in a spotlight where everyone's watching me film myself like that. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And
I'd
what you said
rather
about just propping your phone up literally against your water bottle like that on the floor.
Yeah, doing it discreetly. Yeah, I've got a tiny little tripod.
Like 2 meters away,
Nothing.
underneath like another machine. Just prop it up. If people walk in front of it, because you probably won't even see it. So, but it doesn't matter if they walk in front of it because it's not going up. It's not going on.
Yeah, it's not progression. It's just so that you can see
unless you want to
form.
post it on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to us. So don't worry about that.
I wouldn't go worrying about setting up like film sets and getting.
But that's what most people do now. And you're thinking, well, he's. Do you know what I mean? People that do it are like, well, fucking, he's in good shape and he looks like he does shows, etc. And they're doing it, and it's fine. But when you're out of shape, like I've been lately, I'm getting back in shape. You don't want to be sticking up videos. You're like, what's this plonker doing? Do you know what I mean? Think he's on the IFBB stage.
Mate, do you know what? I think there's a lot to be said, and we talked about sort of environment and setting routines and all this sort of stuff. But do you know what? We don't do the whole shaming, and anyone who does, like, good luck to him, because it won't be long before you're much like a Steve Ryan, where going and he took the fucking plunge. Seriously, I remember us having a conversation, and I mentioned this last time, but he bought himself new straps. He walked in there like a Terminator, like fully kitted out, like belt and stuff to rock and roll.
I had all the gear, but no idea.
All the gear, no idea. But within a couple of weeks, I'll probably say, of me literally tearing his videos apart, and I did, because that's what I'm here for. Like I remember
someone saying to me in the gym, saying, "Oh, what are you filming that for?" I said, "Oh, I'm just filming it so my coach can roast the arse out of me later."
Yeah. But then over time you start to go into the gym, and Steve literally messaged me and he was like, "Do you know what? I actually train the best in this gym than anyone else."
Yeah.
And it shows.
I see people like
you
saying, I see people picking up weights, swinging them. Yeah, they are. They may well be picking up the heaviest weights in the gym, but I could probably pick that weight up and swing it the way they are. It's not actually doing much. Other than
I second that.
Yeah, obviously I've been watching Adam's videos online. Sorry, Ad, obviously he's doing his forms, and it obviously. His form's brilliant. Like every time he's doing it, he's recording his set and then he's putting it up so everyone else can see. Obviously, and you can see his growth coming, and it's amazing. But I can't see myself being able to, because obviously he's more confident than me now. He's sticking it like 3-4 meters in front of him.
It's a little bit like, right? It's a little bit like saying you want to lose weight and you want to diet, and you try and diet, but you're not prepared to take your Tupperware into work because you think people might laugh at you. Well, it's a little bit like that. Like if you don't take your Tupperware into work to eat those meals, and you're not
going to lose the weight,
and you don't eat the meals, or you make them up, or you go in the car and scoff some rice cakes because you think that's the way to get around it. Like you ain't going to make the progress you should be making. It's very, very similar to that, but it's just applying it to your exercise in the gym.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit.
It's the same principle. So like you are training and you are working hard in the gym, but if you went in with your Tupperware and prepared that a little bit better, then you would get a little bit more out of it, and you would suddenly find that you're going to be the one in the gym probably looking better than them, lifting better than them, because you've done that extra thing. But I understand the dauntingness.
You won't find it. It'll be a fucking guarantee.
Yeah, it will be a guarantee.
Yeah. And would you record it every session, or is it just every now and then?
So for us, we don't miss a top set. That's
I was just saying, but not every set. I don't record every set I do.
No, when you say your top set,
every exercise.
You're like 8 to 10, your top set, your hardest set, because that's usually when your form's going to be the worst.
Right, yeah, cool.
Well, it's the one fundamentally is, if we're talking about one set, it's the one that counts.
Also, Don't crop your videos. I said this to Laura yesterday, like, don't crop your videos like you think you're wasting our time sending us a 2-minute video. I don't want to see 2 reps in the middle because it means fuck all to us, really, because we want to see the full set. We want to see how every rep was. We want to see how you fail. Like, do you actually fail, or do you get bored and put it back? Like, we want to see how you set up. Do you just walk up to it and just start moving it? Do you strap in? Do you get your positioning right? Like, what are you doing? And it might sound super anal, but just send us your raw videos. Like, don't cut the sound off, just send them to us.
I'm all about, I can't watch videos without sound. It stresses me out.
I have to tell Abby off for this. She always takes the sound off her videos.
I bollocked her other half.
Don't need to hear me grunting.
I bollocked her other half for it as well. It's just like, do not send me videos without sound in it, because I don't know what's going on. It rocks my brain, but it's all about the setup, your intent, and I love to see that zoning in. Take 30 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Take 30 seconds when you sat on hack squat and you're like, okay, 4-second eccentrics, breathe in on the way down, breathe out on the way up. Like, I know whether you're telling yourself that or not. If I don't see that, I can't determine your intensity and your intent going into the set, and we can work on that as well. Like, we're not magicians, but we're pretty fucking good at this. We know what we're doing, and we will get the best out of you. Like, Steve is an animal in the gym.
Come on, Stevie.
Come on. I swear down. I'm gonna put one of his grunts like a fucking gorilla. Like, he's on it. But he's in fantastic shape now, and it is a transitional period. It's not coming overnight. Like, we all know that, or we all should know that. But you're all on a journey, and it's just that extra couple of percent. How can I squeeze more out of what I'm doing every single day? And to be fair, like, you all nail your diet, you all tick your boxes because it's there in front of you, and you can't not get away with that. But one thing you can get away with, if I'm being honest, guys, is probably being fairies in the gym. I don't know whether that's like, if that's correct in today's society. I don't know whether I can say that. But
who cares?
Yeah, the reality is, if you're fluffing about in the gym, me and Mads don't see it. And
that's me. So me.
Yeah, but Kirk, again, like, you're making fantastic progress. You're in incredible shape now. You're natural. You come away.
But the way I think of it, you can't give me excuses, because again, if I weren't faffing about and I was taking videos and showing you the form and I was doing the rep range correctly, I might be 6 weeks ahead or 10 weeks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Kirk, when I sent my first 2 videos to Corey, I was pretty surprised because he sent the messages back and it was a 7-minute voice note on each one. I'm thinking, what's he got to say about what I've just done? And I was like, but to be honest, I'm going back in the gym today and I'll listen to them and then go at it again. So it definitely helps.
Like, it's like I'm just invading on your privacy and life even more, Kirk. It's amazing. Like,
but you don't realise, though, doing these little check-ins and these videos like this, like tempo, you think, fucking hell, yeah, the 4 seconds, I don't do that. How quick do you get in and out of each set? You're thinking, sometimes you get in, like you said, you think, was that too fast, or was that too, like, if it's slower, the better. So you don't really learn this stuff unless you all talk about it. So same with the form. I wouldn't know to send a video of my form. I'd think, am I doing it right? Sometimes I struggle. Sometimes it feels like I'm not doing it correctly. But unless you talk about sending form in,
I won't bullshit you, mate. Like, I have. There's some guys on here that send me their videos every single. Now, I trust every single one of you. The guys that I coach directly, I trust every single one of you to tick your boxes. Like, I don't need to babysit you. We should be on a level that if you fuck up, you can tell me. We'll have a conversation about it and we'll move on. Fine. But there are some guys in this chat that send me their videos session after session. I don't have to sit there and watch them all intently. I do, but I wouldn't have to. Like, if Adam, Tom, Steve sent me 10 training videos, right? I could watch the first rep, I could watch the 8th and watch the 12th. They'll all be exactly the same. I'll watch them fucking crawl out of the machine, like, and to try and turn their camera off. Oh my God. Like, and I'm like, cool, trust that, I'm happy with that. No problem. Because I've already gone through the process of bollocking them. This is right, this is wrong, do more of this, do less of that. And all of a sudden, they're at an elite standard where I would say their training IQ is so high. I'm like, well, to be fair, we're actually kind of on a level now.
So I'm basically, I'm waiting for a bollocking now of my one.
No, it gets better and better. As you get better, it does.
Yeah.
Like Abby, for example, Abby sends me pretty much every session still, and often now, I won't even give comments on every video. I'll just
talk about
reply
the
to
ones that we need
one
to, yeah.
and just say, remember here, we need to do this. And that'll be it. Because we've spoken about the same, there's only so many exercises in your plan, or so many exercises that you will have done even over like S2 plans, like where you know how to perform them. Abby knows how to perform everything very well now. Like training now is elite compared to how when she started with us. And now it's more like an accountability thing. So she sends me them, not necessarily that there's always going to be comments, but it's an accountability to say, look, I'm still performing my hack squat like this. Look at me still performing my hack squat like this. Look, I'm still doing my split squat like this. And if I haven't got a comment, like I just won't comment on that video, or I'm like, yeah, fucking hell, that's a good set, mate. I'll say, yeah, fucking wicked. Or the next set, I'll just say, just remember to keep this slow. Just a little reminder, because I don't need to give a full evaluation on everything, because she knows how to perform things now. So it gets better, it gets easier.
And obviously with form and stuff, I know I was out for 2 years from a car crash and surgeries, but obviously I know, Corey, you was out for a few weeks because of what happened with you. But is it a sense that you've got to restart and reevaluate and then go again, or did you?
No.
And this is where like the quality comes into play. So you're right, but the approach I've taken since last week on Friday, like I've been on a deload this week. We all know what a deload is because we went through it 2 weeks ago. And why we do a deload? Why do we do a deload? Because it's an opportunity to refresh the body. It's an opportunity to reestablish control over your training accuracy, your body as a whole. So that's what I've done this week, but you don't lose that. It's like riding a bike, mate. I swear down, you will not look back. You will not look back. But it's about getting started. And with Luke, for example, Luke's going in today. He's going to do his chest press again. He's going to make some adjustments to his dumbbell press, and over time, he'll be in a position where that will be just standard. As easy as you wipe your ass, mate, will be as easy as you perform a quality fucking hack squat.
It's the same for me when I first started recording them. I found it really embarrassing. I thought, oh, everyone's going to be thinking, who's this guy think he is? Some sort of fitness model. Look at him, you know.
You are, Steve. Of course you are. But go on.
Got it right.
Also, there was so much wrong with them, Kirk, that I didn't think there was. Like, I think Corey even said to me at one point, he probably felt bad. It's like, I'm not roasting you, although I said it as a joke, but he said this is just helpful information. But there was so much wrong with them that I got a pad, and I couldn't even remember it all because I had to write it all down, and then I just quickly take that, flip through it, so that next time, like, right, he said, don't go, make sure you pause in the hole, or hold it there. And I try and remember to do some of it. Although when I start doing a set, sometimes it'd all go out the window. But that's how I've done it. So
it takes time. We've been doing this a long time, and it probably took us six to 10 months to master, I would say, and it still does. Not every set is perfect.
I still come out of sets and Mads is like, really? I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I do that. Sometimes I send you a video and I'm going to get ripped.
100%. It's like I'll tell you what, I'm going to go in and hack squat 6 plates tonight. Mads is like, we did 5 plates last week, so you ain't doing 6 plates now. I'm like, fuck. No, I did that last week. I swear down, I'm just going for an extra rep. She's like, you're a fucking liar. Take the weight off. I'm like, fine. So it's a process, guys. It's a learning curve. It's another opportunity to it's adding another tool to your arsenal. Do you know what I mean? It will
also when chasing progressive overload, like, it's quite important, because a lot of people will just like you say, just like run after like an extra plate right a session, when it's like the likelihood of having progression that much and that linear is so small. Like, unless you're coming back from some sort of injury and like you're gaining strength at a really rapid rate, the likelihood of hopping up a plate is just slim to none.
No, and this is why we say, like what we were saying at the beginning, and we could probably do one of these sessions on progressive overload in a bit more detail, maybe a little bit further down the line. But what Tom's saying is right. Add in like a 1.25, and it might be a bit humble and put your egos down, Corey, but put in a 1.25 plate aside on something is progression. If you did 8 reps at 40 kilos and the next week you do 8 reps at 42.5, like, what you have to remember is that's 2.5 kilos for each rep. So that's 2.5 kilos times 8. That's how much more load you've moved this week than you did last week.
It's a good way that you say that, and Tom said it, but in my head, I'm looking around at a 1.25 or whatever plate, and I'm like, I can't put it on.
Hide it under the big plates. Hide it under the big plates.
Well, that's 20
does anyone else do that? Because you're like looking, I can't put a biscuit on it.
I'll tell you another good way of getting around
Yeah.
that, boys, would be if you start at the bottom half of a rep range. Say you've got like a 6 to 12, for example. If you hit a weight and get it for 6 and build it all the way up to 12, then you could do a big jump and start at 6 again. So sometimes I'll do that.
The only issue is what you'll find is if you can perfect your form at say 40 kilos, even if you can get up to like 12 reps, if you jump up to 45 potentially, or 47 and a half or 50, because you've never put that load on your back, even though you might only do 6 reps, often the quality of those reps aren't as good because you've never put that load on your back. Whereas if you micro load
Build it up,
you don't even notice the weight. And that's why you can usually match the reps, because if you think about, here's an example, right? If you do, I'll do the maths. If you do,
you've got a calculator, right?
If you do,
Fuck's sake, you've done it.
but this makes a point. Like if you move 40 kilos for 8 reps, and then you add 2.5 kilos onto it, and you do 8 reps again, you've added 20 kilos over that whole set. If you do 12 reps at 40 kilos, right, you'll move 480 if you like, if you want to do the maths like that. If you then jumped it to 50 and only did 6 reps, you're only moving 300.
With you.
So you've actually lost that week. Although you've put more weight on it, you might have got 6 reps.
You've lost
180 kilos less load through that set.
I never like
with you.
Right? So how much less productive is that than matching the reps and putting a tiny bit more load on it?
I suppose it's easy with dumbbells, isn't it? But with barbells and plates.
If you do that every single week and you move 20 kilos more every single week by putting 1.25 each side on,
it's going to keep progressing,
over 5 weeks, you moved an extra 100 kilos. If you jump up the weight and get half the amount of reps, you've lost out on 180 kilos in 1 week, like on one session. So it is quite important to like work out the maths. And this is why I say like, just increase the load a tiny bit and try and match the rep range. Because if you suddenly lose out on half the rep range and you go right to the bottom of it, that's fine. But just be aware that if you make the jump in weight, it all sounds very good. But
and
actually you've actually lost out on loads of progress, to be honest, and your reps are probably shit as well. So like, you're better off starting again. No,
you in the gym today?
Yeah.
Also, like, stop worrying what everyone else thinks in the gym. Like, Mad sees mine coming through, and I up my weights by like 2 kilos a time.
Yeah.
Those biscuits are mine. Like, if someone has my biscuits, I'm fuming.
Yeah.
Like, they're taking my progress. But honestly, if you don't up your weight, people are going to say you're not progressing. If you put biscuits on, they're going to say you're putting biscuits on. If you film it,
they judge anyway. Yeah, I know you're saying. Yeah,
exactly. Like, fuck it, you do you, and just show them with the progress you make.
It's a good way of thinking about it, isn't it? It's a good way of thinking about it. But obviously, everyone's got different things that obviously make them embarrassed or feel ashamed or mental things, struggles. Like, I could stand in a group of 100 girls and talk to everyone, but you put me in a gym in front of people. But it's the same as anything. It's the same as any confidence thing, though. Everyone has something which makes them feel daunted or can't get looked at. Do you know what I mean? Mine would be in a gym. I don't like taking videos. I take pictures of myself and send them to Corey, really, but I've got to for the progression. Whereas some of you are probably like, fucking look at my abs. Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking showing off. Yeah. Like whoever was doing the waving video, do you know what I mean? At the end of his fucking posing.
Oh, Regan, yeah.
Where is Regan anyway?
I don't know, the little shit. He'll be in bed.
Are you going to the gym today?
Nah, day off. So getting my bagel and burger.
There you go. Look, enjoy that. Wait. So, guys, I don't know whether you've got any more questions.
Has anyone got any questions?
This does always really go on. But
Rebecca's been smiling angelically in the corner.
Yeah, it just cracks me up because I just think maybe I've just got no shame or something, because I don't think twice about micro loading. I don't think twice about putting my phone so I can film myself. And you'll notice when I give them to you on my check-in on Monday, I'm pulling faces, I'm breathing really loud, I'm grunting, and I even stop and just sit in the chair, look at the camera, and I'm like,
you know what? I think it's a woman thing.
I was just about to say,
it's a male ego thing. Women are fine with it.
I think we all need to put our big pants on, boys, and start cracking the fuck on.
It is, because men don't like to pick up a biscuit or to
like men really care. It's like so testosterone filled, isn't it? Like, look at how many women you watch do exercises and they do them absolutely perfect, and how many guys do things bollocks. Myself included. Like, I used to do it all the time.
You've been watching me and Corey in the gym, mate.
Jesus Christ.
But when I did steroids before and did a bodybuilding show, you didn't care either, because your testosterone's there and you just want to fucking grunt and lift and whatever. You don't really care. But when you come off with that shit, it's like, fuck. It's like, no, you don't have any of that.
You know less human, Kirk. You know less human. I think most importantly, guys, yeah, it's another tool to your arsenal. You're in a position where it will enable you to continue to progress. There is also no pressure. Like, understand that. Like we said to Luke, start small. Do you know what I mean? Get a video. Start on one exercise. What exercise would you say you're struggling the most with at this very moment in time? Start with that.
That's what I did.
100%.
I think the 2 ones I struggled with on push I sent to you, it was only 2, but to be honest, I still shit myself going in there and sending it, but I did it, and I'll do it again today. So
yeah.
Once you've done it a couple of times, the worry the anxiety kind of
I think
drops
it's
off a little bit, I think.
mentally you think that everyone's watching you, but then when I was filming it, I kind of was thinking they're not really looking at me.
Yeah,
Well,
90% of people in the gym are looking at themselves.
The way I think of it when I'm filming, I think, if we're honest, most people in the gym are so self-centered anyway. They're just thinking of themselves on what they're doing. They're not worried about what you're doing with your camera, or if you're doing the weights wrong. They don't really care. They probably don't even notice.
Or just do like me and just make an announcement before you do film your set, so everyone knows what you're about to do.
Yeah, walk in front of my fucking video.
No, that's
Eating the
mad,
biscuits.
mate. I'm like, man, should we get started on this? Because someone's going to walk in front of your video in a minute and you're going to kick off, and I don't want to be involved in that.
I can't lie. I kicked off the other week when someone walked in front of me when I was doing hat squat. They came up to me to ask me where weight plates were. I was fuming. I literally stopped afterwards. After my set, some idiot, I literally walked up to him after and went, mate, you have no idea how painful that set was, but you walked up to me and talking to me, and I looked at him with the face of death. I was going to kill him.
So you've done your top set and you can't record it again. Fuck that.
I said to him, I went, if you do that to me again, I'm going to put you on the machine that I just did with the way that I just did and make you do it. And he said he doesn't talk to me now in the gym, and I wonder why.
Yeah, I love that.
He's the one with the flowers. He's the one with the flowers.
Yeah, say sorry.
They're freaking me out. But also, I know the person who messaged Madeline about my coaching, and he's actually just a really sweet person, because I know his dad's Ulysses, the bodybuilder.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he comes to my gym as well, and he saw me doing back squats the other day, and he even complimented me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I know you. Love that. Any questions, guys? You all good? You all happy?
All good.
Glad I come on now. I weren't going to join. So if you
Hiya.
didn't text me, I wouldn't have come. So yeah.
Hi, I don't have a question, but just like listening to. Sorry, I'm in the gym, so it's a little bit loud. You have to excuse the noise. Just think going back to like filming and stuff. One thing I've realised when I film is that when people walk in front of you, it's because they're not watching you. That's how much people are not bothered by what you're doing. They're literally going to walk in front of you because they don't care, because they're not watching you. And I feel like that's been really helpful for me to keep in mind when I am filming my own sets. And also, like when I've sent my stuff over to Maddie as well, during prep, I know it's slightly different, but when I was posing, what I'd do is I'd get in the studio and I'd listen to your feedback whilst I was doing the exercise. So that might be something, I don't know if anyone else does that, that's really helpful. I'll strap into the machine, I'll play the specific video that we've gone over together, and I will literally listen to you talk. It's like you're talking me through it. So maybe somebody else might also find that helpful. I don't know if anyone else does that, but it's so helpful to me.
Certainly for your warm-up sets, that's a great show. Love that.
Yeah.
Fucking love that chat. Well then, Aisha, coming in with the old fucking closing out comment, mic drop.
Aisha, by the way, he's reversing out of her show amazingly, and he's eating out.
Oh, thank you.
It looks fucking wicked.
You're doing incredibly well. Well, I think we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for this weekend, unless anybody's got any questions. Everyone have an amazing one. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for tuning in. Lots of love to you all. Keep killing it. Bringing the heat, baby. Yep.
Peace.
So much. Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.